Hi friends, welcome to Workplace 20. We're just going to get our math warm up for today. So a few things that we're going to be using in this outcome. This outcome is on surface area and volume and capacity. Um, a lot of the formulas are kind of ugly here, so you're going to have decimal answers almost all the time. So let's talk about rounding. And we're going to just as a group decide that we're going to go to one decimal place in this unit unless you're told otherwise. Okay, so if you want to go to one decimal place, what that means is you identify where you're at. Okay, so I want to go to one decimal place here, which means I want to keep that. So you need to look next door, okay? And the little poem says if it's 5 or greater, you add one more. All the digits in the front stay the same. All the digits behind zero's your name. Okay, so basically we can't change the value of the number. We're just cutting off, but we can't truncate, which is chopping. So this is going to become 123.6 because the number next to that 5 is larger than 5. Okay, same thing here. So if I go 14.72, I look at the 7, look next door. It's a number that's less than 5. So it's going to become 14.7. So it either stays the same or it goes up 1. Okay, to one decimal place, I look here, go next door. It's 5 or larger. So I'm going to change that to 9.6. Okay, you pause the video now and try these three and then come back and check them. All right, so there's your answers, 98.7, 13.0, and 1.6. Okay, if you are still struggling with that, ask a teacher. So we're going to now talk about using a proportion to solve. So proportions are the fraction equals fraction type of equation. Very common that we use them in problem solving. So we're just going to take a peek at kind of setting up a proportion, okay? And we use these tons of times. So it says Tyler can eat 21 hot dogs in 6 minutes. How many hot dogs could he eat in 35 minutes if he was to keep the same pace? So basically you all like the way you recognize a proportion is that you have a pair of information and then you have another single piece and it's asking you for the other one. So we're going to set up fraction equals fraction with one of our pairs of information. So I'm going to go 21 hot dogs in 6 minutes equals, and it wants to know how many hot dogs. So hot dogs are on the top and I have 35 minutes on the bottom. Okay, so we set it up so that our units are the same bottom and the same top. Okay, now you don't really, like when you cross multiply, you don't really need the units in there. We just had that so that we could set it up. So you're going to take 21 times 35 and 6 times x. Normally I start with where my variable is. So x times 6 is 6x, and 21 times 35 is 735. And then we divide by 6 to solve. So I end up with 735 divided by 6, which is 122.5 hot dogs. So 122 hot dogs essentially, but 122 and a half hot dogs is what he can eat. Okay. Second one, if a cookie recipe calls for 3 cups of flour to make 36 cookies, so there's a set of information, how much flour is needed to make 45 cookies? Okay, so same thing, we're going to go 3 cups. We'll make 36 cookies. How many cups will make 45 cookies? Very common that we use these. So x times 36 is 36x. 3 times 45 is 135. Divide by 36 on both sides to solve that. And I end up with 3.75 cups of flour. Okay, so you're just going to set up a proportion and solve them. So I want you to try the example at the top of the page. On the back side of the page, you try that one. So pause the video, try that, come back and check your answer. Okay, so it tells me in the question that 1 tank of gas will get me 650. How many tanks of gas will get me 3245 kilometers? So the cross multiply, giving me 650x equals 3245. Divide by 650, I get 4.99, so 5 tanks of gas. Okay, the last thing I want to look at before we move into the actual outcome is substitution in for a variable. So remember that when we have a variable, an expression, it represents a number, and we want to substitute in, and this is important that you show your work and substitute in to these formulas, okay? So if I have an expression that says negative 2x plus 3y, and if x is 5 and y is negative 2, I want to substitute in. So I like to show a substitution using a bracket. So this expression up here says negative 2 times x plus 3 times y. So I like to show the substitution with a bracket because that then clearly indicates that it is multiplying plus 3 times y, and y is negative 2. And then you evaluate, remember that your order of operations, you do multiplication before addition. So this will become negative 10 plus negative 6, which equals negative 16. Okay, you can do the same thing for a formula, and we did this at the end of the last outcome. So if I have a formula that volume is equal to length times width times height, and volume is 236, length is 10, height is 4. So I'm going to substitute in. So 236 equals, my length is 10, my width, I don't know, my height is 14. So keeping in mind that what this formula means is length times width times height. You can multiply in any order that you want. So I talked about this in the last outcome as well. On this right-hand side here, I like to multiply the things together that I can. So I'm going to multiply 10 and 14 together, which will give me 236 is equal to 140 W. Now I'm down to a one-stepper. So divide by 140. And you end up with W is equal to 236 divided by 140, which is 1.7. Okay, pause the video now, try the examples below, come back and check your answers. All right, so here we are. Either way, we get a radius of 38.2. I just want to point out kind of the two different ways that I did this here. So I'm substituting in 240 for my circumference. In the first example, or the first way that I did this, you'll see that I divided by 2 pi, like I kept the 2 and the pi together, divided by that, and then I substituted into my calculator over here. 240 divided by 2 pi gave me 38.2. You can also, because like I said, sometimes our brains don't register this very well, so if we change 2 times pi into a number at 6.28 and then divide by 6.28, we get the same thing. The only thing you have to watch is if you evaluate partway through and there's decimals, you want to make sure you keep a few decimal places, like even more than 2 would be great. If you round too much, then you're going to find that your answer will be off a little bit, okay, but 38.2.